Okay, so that's our pond. Just a pond of typical standing water. And I'm sure that'll be representative and typical of water or a pond or a lake or some sort of standing water you might find anywhere in the world. So there it is. I'll walk up to it to give you some scale. So there it is. I'm actually filming this video after the next video. The next video is number 3 in the series of water collection. And I make an improvised water filter in a bamboo container. And when I collected the water from the pond for that video, I was actually surprised by how clear the water was, how clean the water looked. But I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and collect some water in my first container. This just happens to be a glass bottle I picked up in the garden. But that could be an example of an emergency situation when you're out there somewhere. You can find trash and rubbish in most places around the world. Mankind's gone everywhere. People leave behind rubbish, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, you can find rubbish and so forth almost anywhere. So there's a glass bottle. I'm going to collect water in this first container. I've got one metal pot for putting on the fire to cook. It's an emergency cooking pot, which you should be carrying. I advocate that you carry at least a small pot as a backup emergency cooking pot. It could be any steel pot you can put on the fire. I'm not going to collect water in my steel pot because I'm going to strain the water first before it goes in there. When you collect water from standing water, there are 3 guidelines you should be following. Don't disturb the water. Have a close look at the surface. Use your hand to just clean away or wave away any floating material, and just put the container very gently and softly into the very top of the water and just skim the water in very nicely and take it out nicely. They're the 3 guidelines you need to follow. And I've collected water right there, and it doesn't look all that dirty, and I'm going to talk about why in a second. Admittedly, one of the guidelines I mentioned, waving dirt away from the water, that's hard to do because when you put the container in, it's going to suck the water in anyway, and all floating contaminants will tend to come in, so that was hard to do. But the 3 rules again: don't disturb the water, wave away visible material, especially oil and so forth, and just gently put the water into the very top and take the water out, not down below, just nicely on the top. Careful not to disturb the water and take the container out. That's how you're going to collect the water from the very top layer without disturbing up any sediments and so forth. The very first basic step you need to do is strain the water through a cloth material. I've got a tea towel, something I advocate that you have in your pack, some sort of a tea towel. I'm going to fold this over. I'll fold it over again. I've now got 4 layers of tea towel. If you don't have any cloth materials, you can use a piece of clothing. If you don't have any cloth materials at all, it means you're walking around naked. What I'm going to do is put this very carefully on the steel pot and just run the water through. And it's even taking a bit of time to go through, which is a good thing. If it takes a long time to go through, it means that it's really filtering well. And there's 4 layers of thick cotton tea towel here. Let that drain through. Just pick it up carefully. Maybe I can just wring out some of the water. And I've collected quite a few particles and so forth. Maybe you can see there. Throw it off. If you're going to keep filtering water through, just keep it as it is, so you know where to put the water through next time. I'll just leave that there for a second. Maybe I can't show you properly in here, but the water is quite clear and actually not looking too dirty. It's not that bad. Now, that's the next step. Your next step is to look at the water, and if it's not too bad, that can go straight on the fire and boil it. I can put that on the fire, boil and drink, no worries at all. It's only if the water is overly disgusting, very turbid, murky and so forth and dirty, that you may want to put it through an improvised filter. And that's the next series of videos, is making improvised filters. 2 types, a filter in containers. I use a bamboo container. You can use plastic water bottles, or if you've got no containers, you can put cloth materials. I call them elevated cloth filters. where you hang cloth materials up on tripods or quad pods, even 3 or however many you've got, at least 1, 2, 3 layers, and put material in the cloth material and make a filter that way. So that I would boil. If it's overly dirty, you can put that through a filter. So they're the steps to collecting standing water, and I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you next time.